Welcome back, guys. Here we are once again. The Alien Intruders Piercing the Cosmic Veil show. We have another wonderful event for you tonight. We have a special guest down here, Laura Maxwell. And you all know Mr. Joseph Jordan, Corey Andrews, Corey Pressler, Lee Arn, and I'm the one and only Jason December. Take it away, Lee.
Yes, thank you, Jason. And today we do have a very special guest, Laura Maxwell. Laura is here to share her testimony. She was an ex-spiritist and she was doing things like seances, communicating with the dead. Part of her story is quite tragic, and we're lucky enough that she is able to explain to us, because this may indeed help people. So we'd like to welcome Laura to the show. Welcome, Laura. It's been a long time coming and you're finally here, and good to have you here. And Laura, would you please explain to us how things came about for you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, guys. Really appreciate it. Since about 2009, I've been a guest on TV and radio shows around the world. I've written for books, magazines, even education books that have went across New Zealand and Australia some years ago, teaching children about the dangers of the occult, witchcraft, and so on, because that was my background along with my mother. So I came out of all that. 1996, I was involved for 10 years with my mum. Came out 1996 when, I'll explain later what happened there. Since then, I have been sharing with other people. The last 10 years, I have saw people come out of that, find Jesus, get set free from demonic attack, whether that's in the form of so-called aliens or ghosts, and so on.
Laura, you had, I just want to talk about your mother a little bit more. She really opened that door into this whole spiritual world that she became involved in. Do you want to talk a little bit about what sort of things she was practicing, what modalities, and some of the experiences that happened to her? And then you also became involved in that, and you learnt through her, and something shifted to make you see the truth in what was actually happening. Could you share with us a little bit about that?
Yes, she had always been interested in the paranormal, New Age. Is there life after death? Is there a God? These kinds of questions. And she had, throughout her life, certain experiences, psychic phenomenon, experiences with what she thought were spirits and so on. So when I was a young teenager, she started to attend Spiritualist church here in Scotland, and I went with her. She had already saw what we thought were ghosts at home, and she wanted to develop to become a medium, and they of course encouraged this. And we, as well as communicating with so-called ghosts, we were also taught the New Age, New Thought teaching, whereby there are basically spirit guides who are guiding the earth. So we were taught this, and of course, it might sound a little bizarre for people that haven't heard of this, but there was ample evidence for this to be true. Therefore, we accepted it. You know, plenty doctors, plenty scholars, scientists, very clever academics believe this stuff too, because there is evidence and hard proof. Therefore, we go into that. And through my childhood, I had dreams of alien spacecraft landing all over the world, really, to attack people and to kill us all. And when I was 12 or 13, my mum's aunt, who was also a spiritualist, she and I saw a UFO in the sky. So it only fueled more of our interest in that whole arena.
Hey,
Laura,
Laura.
I gotta.
Whoa.
Go ahead, Jason.
Tana, just quick question. You were a teenager when this all started. Where was the father figure, or did you have one? What was going on with the father figure in your life at that?
Up until that point, my dad didn't like anything like that, and he wasn't religious or spiritual in any way. He didn't want us involved in anything like that. So my mother and I would look at paranormal ghost stories on TV, etc., when he was out the house. So it wasn't till they divorced when I was about 12, 13, and that's when we fully went into it and started going to New Age meetings, spiritualist church meetings, seances, yoga, meditation, started getting into astrology, all that, the kind of a New Age.
Yes.
Which of course isn't New Age at all. It's old, it's pagan, it's
Yeah.
ancient teachings, actually.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Laura, I know people are recognizing you have a different accent than most of us here. Tell people that are watching this where you're at right now and where you're from.
I was born in Glasgow, Scotland, in the UK, and my husband and I still live here.
Okay, the question I have about that is you're looking at our group here, and we're representing 4 different cultures here. I'm in South Korea, Lee's in Australia, you're in Scotland, and Jason and the 2 Corys are in America. So all the different cultures of all 4 of these countries are different from each other. So asking about Scotland, how prominent is spiritualism in Scotland? How does it go back a long way? Is it prominent in the society?
Yes, and it's become more popular now over the last, well, I left it obviously 20 odd years ago. It's become more popular, 30, 25 years ago. It's become more popular now, but yes, and more people are doing psychic workshops, channeling workshops. You see these things happening in the Starbucks cafe or restaurants. It's far more open now. When we were into it, it was still popular, but under the umbrella of going to spiritualist church rather than going to a ghost haunting session or whatever. It was the Spiritualist Church of Great Britain that we went to, and that had been going on for, yes, a long time. And obviously they would go every week, every Sunday. Saturday we would go for the so-called psychic healing, where healings took place, but Sunday was the service. Kind of looked like a typical church service. There would be singing, there would be a bit of a message, and then the medium on the platform would go into trance and give messages allegedly from the dead to the congregation and so on.
In Scotland, there is a presence of Christianity. What's more dominant? Is it Catholicism or Protestantism?
I would say it's really quite a mix of both. So there's the Church of Scotland, which is the Protestant church, and Catholic churches. There are Baptist, Gospel Brethren, Pentecostal, but yeah, there is still that divide here. With football games can be quite are raucous when sometimes
Like-
the football fans will fight
Like in Ireland?
because of the that divide.
Mm, mm.
Laura,
Another thing I wanted to point out, that, and she's already brought it up, and we're going to talk more about it as we get into this, is even though we brought her on as a ex-spiritualist and talking about her work and her former past into that and coming out of it, she's already made the allusion to experiencing UFO phenomenon, especially in her younger days, earlier life. And that's the kind of connection we want to be able to show here. And we'll explore that more as the questions come out. Thanks, Laura. Go ahead, Jason.
Laura, your accent is amazing. It gives me joy. Thank you.
Yes, I love it.
I love it. Your accent is wonderful. Once again, I got delivered some joy. So thank you. Quick question for you. What do you think about, what do you think, and have you seen a push or a change in some of these television offerings such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, cable television, Hollywood? Have you seen a significant increase yourself in the television shows that are being promoted in regards to witchcraft, Satanism, Luciferianism, occult, paranormal, alien? I mean, if because I'm sure the whole team here has noticed, if you go to your Netflix application, or if you have it on television or your Prime Video, it's virtually impossible to find a movie or a television series that does not have something to do with Satan, with aliens, with the occult, or with witchcraft. At least that's what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm sure you going through this as a teenager and going through this full gamut, you must be taken back by what's happening today that's being pushed upon the world.
Yes and no, because back when we were into it, we were taught that the plan, and that was the words used, the plan for humanity, that the spirit guides were bringing humanity into. The plan was to introduce all these types of New Age teachings to the world in a much greater way, to every aspect of society, education, media, medicine, technology, everything like that, so that everyone in the world would be exposed to New Age teachings, witchcraft teachings, etc. Specifically because these spirit guides would channel and say, the world is about to enter into the fulfillment of the age of Aquarius. And to do that, the earth, the world has to evolve. People on the earth are not very spiritually evolved, and they have to evolve because of the things that are coming into the world, pollution, corruption, all the things that are happening in the planet. They foresaw this. They told us that they saw this eons ago, and that they were here to try and help us to evolve spiritually. So we were taught the plan was, no matter what career you get into, no matter what social life you are involved in, spread the New Age message everywhere. And they predicted that in a short time, it will be everywhere. And that was only 20, 25 years ago, we were told that. And then we began to see, yes, it was taken off much more. In a couple of decades, basically the plan has happened, it has took place, they have achieved it.
That's interesting because, well, through my experience, the people that were coming in my life 8 years ago, mine was centralized to UFO alien abduction syndrome, and the people that were coming into my life, it was the ascension. We have to ascend, right? Yep. So it parallels exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead, Lee.
Oh, just wanted to say that you can also see the influence of the New Age occult moving into the churches now.
Yep, absolutely.
We have Bethel Church or those churches are doing these modalities that are occult, but they're hiding them under a different kind of disguise, and they're slipping through, particularly for people who aren't solid Christians and aren't able to discern that this is actually an occult thing. And it's really concerning. It's very concerning.
Very much so, and I've saw that here in Scotland, across many Pentecostal churches, and it's really so sad. I have saw them believing they are getting messages from angels, and even dead preachers, even people from the Bible, John the Baptist or Isaiah, and they even say they can now get messages from the great cloud of witnesses the Bible talks about. And I have actually tried to share with folks, you know, the Bible says we cannot actually do that. We can't speak to the dead in heaven or hell. We cannot speak to them. Doesn't matter if it's John the Baptist or Elijah or Ezekiel, whoever. We can't, and yet they've been taken in by it. But interestingly, sometimes I have had some success in sharing this with Christians, and they have tested it, as the Bible says, test the spirit. And indeed, they have found that the so-called angel or other Bible character or dead preacher was not who he said he was. Typical scenario, getting attacked by them, coming out of that, getting deliverance from that, because we do need deliverance when we're involved in anything that is demonic, receiving deliverance from it. And interesting, isn't it, that any of us who were into these things, once we received deliverance from these things, repented of them, the phenomena stops.
Yes.
You know, I left that area for 20 years, and not now, since I left them, not once has any so-called ghost or so-called alien tried to attack me. Not once.
Laura, an uncomfortable question. Did you convert people to spiritualism?
Yes. Thankfully, not that many. And I don't know that they stayed in it all that long. It may just have been a passing fad because I was a teenager and in my early 20s. But yes, I took people to Spiritualist Church.
Yeah, I did the same when I was in the New Age realm. That was my mission, was to convert as many as possible.
Exactly. We were told to do that. That was the plan. And when you have beings that claim to be ascended masters, and we didn't like using the word aliens, that didn't sound a nice term to use for them. Ascended masters, spirit guides, coming through at seances and so on, telling you what to do. You're not going to doubt them. You tend to just obey, don't you? Because you think you're being spiritual and you're chosen.
Yes. Good points. Yeah.
Corey?
Laura, can I ask you what happened in the moments leading up to your UFO sighting, the moments before, during, and after? Like, describe how you felt, like, and what you were doing. Like, what were you doing before you had your UFO sighting? Like, I'll just let you talk.
Well, my aunt, who was also a spiritualist and into New Age, she was taking me home. I had been at her house and we used to talk about all these things. We loved all that type of thing. And literally we were going home. It was very dark. There were the sky was pitch black. There were stars in the sky. And we saw all of a sudden what at first we thought was a shooting star, shot straight across. So we both looked at it. It seemed to come out of nowhere. It shot across in a completely straight line and then it stopped. So we stopped and we both stared at it. It stopped, and then after a few minutes, at least 1 minute, it then suddenly just reversed very, very fast and disappeared. So we didn't know, could it be an aircraft, a human aircraft that can maneuver like that? We weren't sure. We felt that it was a UFO just because of the heightened spiritual energies, spiritual vibrations that as New Agers we were used to in having mystical experiences.
And by UFO, you mean ET? Like, did at the time of the sighting, in your mind, did it translate over to ET?
In our minds,
did you think of something else?
In our minds, we wondered if it was perhaps spacecraft or any other phenomena that are given to sometimes describe these things, but we assumed that it was a alien aircraft just because of the way it maneuvered. And also because of the sort of a mystical feelings that we felt when it was happening. But I also had, as a child, recurring dreams of alien UFO craft all around the world, landing and killing people. That dream was a recurring dream I had throughout my teens and 20s. Which again, it would be very, the sense in the dream would be very evil. I would experience what they would term sleep paralysis. Sometimes when this happened, I would literally be attacked by evil spirits as well. The typical phenomena people describe when that happens, that would happen to me as well.
Right. Laura, when that happened to you, sleep paralysis, and you felt attacked, what was it in your mind you thought that was?
I did think it was spiritual because of the lifestyle we were leading and the beliefs that we had, and simply because so many other people that I knew experienced the same. And it wouldn't always just be when you were asleep, because some people might say, well, you were just sleeping, it was just a dream. No, it also would happen when we were awake. And to be fully awake and suddenly paralyzed, cannot move your body, cannot speak, and sometimes see evil spirits in the room or a shadow figure, feel them touching you, feel them moving you about, then you're not just imagining it. And my mother certainly experienced that as well. Yeah.
So if you were feeling like you were being touched, or there's that presence, or you felt it was a negative experience, did you at any point in your mind think that it could be demonic, or it's just, were you sort of looking at those kind of things back then?
We believed that there were evil spirits and evil aliens because we were taught that within the New Age. They do believe there are good ghosts, bad ghosts, if you like, good aliens, bad aliens, and that there is a war going on, and they can affect you. And of course, they would teach that the good spirit guides should help you and, bring you through any attacks that you experience. So when you say demonic, yes, we believed in demonic, but not in the biblical sense of demonic. We did not believe in the Bible, and so on. We were taught the opposite. We were actually taught in the New Age that Jesus, the Bible is not true. Jesus is not true. He was actually just a reincarnation of star gods, alien ascended masters, and that Lucifer is actually God. Lucifer is God. He came from Venus. and he will be the one who will return to culminate the age of Aquarius. There will be chaos in the world. There will be global climate, absolute chaos, wars, etc., corruption in government, etc. And all these alien beings and spirit guides are really working for Lucifer to bring world peace and to unite everyone in the last days under him. So when you say demonic, yes, we believe demonic, but not in the sense that the Bible says.
Right. Okay.
Hey, Laura, when these spirit guides were contacting you and your mother, was it separately, or would it be the same entity at the same time talk to both of you, or would they separate you when they would communicate?
Well, a mixture of things, really. Also, obviously through other mediums in that spiritualist church, that would happen. I wasn't as advanced as my mother. She was channeling them. She was doing automatic writing, where she believed she was writing. They would give her information, she would write it down. She channeled them. But at that time, I was a teenager, early 20s, so I wasn't into it as much as her, and I wasn't channeling as such these beings, but I was being attacked by them, yes, and I did see things, and things did happen around me, whether my mum was there or not.
Hey, Laura, you said that your mother and father got divorced. I'm trying to get a grasp of if you were my daughter, and I knew this was happening with you and your mother. That had to be tough on him, and that had to be tough on the relationship with you. How was that for you? Did you continue a relationship with him? Do you have one with him today? What were his thoughts as all this was happening? Because he obviously knew it was going on.
He knew it was going on, and he was in the house sometimes when things happened. And also when they were divorced, obviously he would come back, visit, and he did see stuff, and he knew stuff. He was actually frightened, I believe, because he never really spoke about it very much, other than that he didn't want me involved. And he never told any of our family what he knew. In fact, sometimes when him and I were with his family, if anything like that was brought up in conversation, he would laugh and make a joke about it being nonsense. And yet I would know, oh wow, he knows it's true. He just couldn't go there, I think. And also I think because he didn't have any spiritual beliefs himself, he didn't know how to help. Right. And he actually, 2 years ago, he came to the Lord. Praise just God. Before he passed away.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Amen. And we spoke about all these things, and he actually had been watching a lot of my interviews and so on YouTube, and other people that I'd recommended to him, apologetics, professors in universities around the world who prove Jesus Christ really did live, die on the cross, resurrection really did happen, the Bible really is true. My dad watched all that stuff during his months of battling cancer, and so he did.
You know, isn't that interesting how the Lord works? You know, I mean, what if you would have never gone through those experiences? He may have never may have found Jesus. So when we look back in retrospect, sometimes we can see that we go through years and years of torment. We go through these wild experiences, but look at the end. He came to Christ right before he passed away, and we know exactly where he is right now.
Before we start back into the questioning, Laura was leaving off where talking about her dad coming to Christ in his later years, and it was through people being able to show him the evidence, you know, that Christ was real. I think it really happened. And I just want to point out there's a favorite piece out there that I'd like to share with people that question it, you know, the reality. It's a powerful book, and I think everybody ought to have a copy. That if you have somebody that says, no, that wasn't real, just give the copy to them. It's worth it, because it changed the author's life, and it could change somebody else's. And it's this one, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you get through this and still don't believe, you got problems. I got to tell you. But the question, I want to go back to one that a point that Laura brought up, and I think this one needs to be talked about and elaborated on a little more. There's a lot of discussion in the paranormal realm and the UFO realm about sleep paralysis, and she talked about that. But there's very, very little talked about this aspect of awake sleep paralysis, which she mentioned. And I'd like to get her to talk a little bit more and explain that, how that happens, what the experience is like, because it's actually a little different than being asleep and experiencing sleep paralysis, because you're fully awake when it happens. Laura, can you give us some more in depth about that? Because I think this is one that really needs to be covered in depth, because I don't see it talked about a lot. I mean, I've only heard about it really mentioned a couple times. You're the third time I've heard this in the 20-some years I've been doing this. I know that it happens to people, but I don't hear it talked about. And I think that this is a good time to bring it forward now that you brought it out.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it happened to my mother and I, and exactly the same as sleep paralysis, but whilst you're awake. And also, you literally see something in the room, things move, you literally are being attacked, physically attacked, and not able to do anything about it. You're not able to shout on help from anyone else in the room. You cannot move your body, and the evil presence is overwhelming, and it's spiritual, even though physical activity can happen. My mother experienced it whilst being raped by so-called ghosts, so-called alien spirit guides. I had experiences of it as well, where there would be someone else in the room, and I couldn't talk to the person, couldn't ask for their help. Sometimes, for examples, when that type of thing was happening, my husband would be in the room and he would hear the same noise I heard or see the same shadow figure that I saw, etc. So it couldn't just be, well.
So wait a second. You're having the experience and somebody else is present not having the experience, and you're in the same presence.
Yes, in the same room. Yes. Wow. Interestingly, what would often happen though would be if my husband walked in the room, or a relative came in the room, the experience would stop, and it would almost be as if the entities did not want any witnesses to know what was going on. And even when I left house to move in with Paul, and we were moving furniture and so on, that day the demonic really rattled the place, but they always stopped doing it when the removal men walked in the room. But when they were out the room, the doors were slamming, furniture was moving around. And we actually hoped that the removal men would see it so that we had witnesses and so that they could maybe help us, but it would stop immediately they stepped back into the house. And over the years of talking to people and researching it, I have heard of this happening even with people, celebrities and so on, who have came out and said they had such experiences with whether they believed it to be ghosts or whether they believed it to be aliens, where yes, they were attacked and their friend or their partner was sitting in the room and saw certain things happen. So, you know, it wasn't just a hallucination, and so on. And a few years ago, I did a series of radio interviews on the topic spectrophilia, sex with ghosts and alien spirit guides, because it was becoming a craze just a few years ago. People were sharing how they were doing this. It was on TV here in Britain, Good Morning TV shows of mediums or channelers who were saying they were having sex with ghosts. Other celebrities started coming out and admitting that they had been doing it, and it got to where it was actually getting promoted as a good thing. And I went online and saw there were lots and lots of New Age websites, medium websites, telling you how to initiate contact with a spirit and initiate a sexual relationship with such a spirit. Now, it's rather bizarre because down throughout history, different cultures and so on have reported this happening to them, but they didn't want it to happen to them. They were being raped and so on. So for this swing in the culture to promoting it as if this is a good thing is really quite bizarre, and I felt just another sign of the end times that we are in the biblical timeline.
Yeah, it's craziness. It's crazy. Yeah.
Could I just read, because Joseph, when you asked what was that like and what did it feel like and so on, this quote from Whitley Strieber, I don't know if I pronounced that properly, Whitley Strieber. He was a ufologist, I believe, and wrote a book, Transformation. This is what he said: I felt an absolute, indescribable sense of menace. It was hell on earth to be there in the presence of these entities. And yet I couldn't move, couldn't cry, couldn't get away. I lay as still as death, suffering inner agonies. Whatever was there seemed so monstrously ugly, so filthy, dark and sinister. Of course they were demons. They had to be. He's a ufologist. I find it very interesting that a lot of UF scholars, and even those who have been regarded as main guys in the field of ufology, not Christian at all, and yet at least half a dozen that I've noticed that have said similar, that they believe the phenomena is demonic and that these entities can act and behave and have the same supernatural abilities demons in the Bible had. And I think that's amazing that these guys are not Christian, and yet they've said that. John Keel, Jacques Vallée, Carl Sagan, Arthur C. Clarke, who have actually said that, and yet they're not Christian. So very, very interesting that they should indeed.
I'm sure you guys here on the panel, and you, Laura, and really everybody out there has heard the terms incubus and succubus, right? Yes. So I just decided to look into those, and I put succubus in here first as a demon or supernatural entity in folklore, in female form, that appears in dreams to seduce men, usually through sexual activity. According to religious traditions, repeated sexual activity with a succubus can cause poor physical or mental health. And then below this article is a list of succubus movies. So if you want to watch movies from Hollywood about succubus, and they start with movies like Succubus, Death by Temptation, Saint Sinner is about a succubus, Demon Hunter, The Devil's Nightmare, Hellbent. And then there's the succubus game. So if you want to get on your aLIEn computer and you want to start playing games, you can play games that have to do with succubus and incubus.
Oh gosh.
They make a lot of depraved video games nowadays.
They're going to get you at every angle. Every angle they're going to get you. They're going to get you.
I often wonder whether with the ET experiencer having an experience where a Pleiadian comes to them and this Pleiadian woman is making love to them, whether that's just the succubus in disguise at that time to allow that scene to happen.
I think so, because I've heard time and time again, and my mother told me from what she experienced, and I've heard time and time again, people, whether it's all these different alien races out there, there's meant to be hundreds or thousands of them, Arcturians, Andromedans, the list goes on, Pleiadians, Anunnaki, the Intergalactic Federation of Light, the Council of Elohim, on and on and on. And people who have channeled these so-called aliens will say that, like that, they can literally change their image to look like a certain entity, but they can morph and look like another entity. It's the very fact they can change their appearance. And people say, for example, doing this channeling, mediums, channelers, light workers, channeling these beings, whether it's a so-called ghost or a so-called spirit guide, Pleiadian, etc., that a lot of people have said they caught them out telling lies, and things were becoming inconsistent about where they said what planet they were from or whatever, and they caught them out with the lies, and even would challenge them in Jesus' name, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, show me your true form. Whoa, suddenly that ghost of your dead gran, that spirit guide from Pleiades or wherever, morphs into a demon, screams, tries to attack you sometimes as well before it leaves. And also, so interesting that the message these entities bring, whether they're so-called ghosts or so-called aliens, fairies, gnomes, whatever the person is channeling, mermaids even, who are meant to be coming from Atlantis, that are a group of aliens from under the ocean, which, surprise, surprise, we hear UFOs sometimes ship comes out of the ocean. These Atlanteans of old are going to come back and save the world with these other aliens from outer space. They're all going to come back and save the world, etc. It's a false gospel.
Amen. Amen.
It's an alien gospel, because one of the things they all say is that Jesus Christ is not God. The Bible is not real.
That's the one thing they agree on.
Tend to say the one thing they agree on.
That's right.
They don't care if you worship Buddha or Krishna or Hindu gods, whatever. In fact, they even teach that all the gods in the world, all the gods, goddesses, entities, all of that are actually gods from outer space who were here eons and eons ago, and they are who we actually worship, and that's why we worship them, because they all came down and moved to different continents and taught different religions to each continent, because that's who they were from, i.e. Jesus Christ is a reincarnation of one of many saviour gods who
heard that before.
Zeitgeist, we were taught the Zeitgeist theory. Jesus is just a reincarnation of many gods who have been down through history, and in fact he is an alien. And I noticed the Vatican have been teaching that, the Vatican Observatory.
That's where the ecumenical movement's coming from, yes.
The Pope and the Jesuits have alluded to that, which is exactly what I was taught back in the 80s would happen. The plan, we will take over the world's system of thinking, whole world view, whereby religions will all be, religions will all come to realise this. Governments, media, everyone will come to realise this, that we've been fed a lie by the various teachings that have been going on, and that yes, we are all descended, we're all star seeds, we're all descended from aliens from different, whether it's Pleiades or the Arcturians or, and this all feeds into that whole agenda that's now definitely taken off.
And it is, Laura, it is taking off. And what I want people to understand is that it's not going to happen. There's going to be a strong delusion, and we are in the delusion right now. And there's a lot going on that I'm not going to get into because I don't want our channel taken down. But I think you guys know what I'm talking about. There's many tentacles at work at the same time right now. But more important than that is that if there's anybody watching and listening to Laura, listening to this show, and if anybody has decided to look into the occult or the supernatural or the alien agenda or whatever it may be, or maybe you're having experiences like you're hearing now, maybe you've been having them, maybe you're fearful, maybe they started off good and interesting and now they've changed. I want everybody to know that if you are in a situation where you're in fear and you're being attacked in any way, shape, or form, you can, by the authority of Jesus Christ, ask them to be removed from you. And it's that simple. It sounds cliche and it may sound silly to some people, but I've experienced it myself. I know Laura's experienced it. I know everybody on the panels has experienced this. And I know that somebody's watching this right now, and I just want you to know that it can be stopped. And it's that simple. And if you ask him to come in your heart, he will. And he'll change your life. And like Laura said,